and it's based on this one. In verse 3, he restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness. Here's a place where we don't see the translation as clearly in some of our major versions that would convey what most translators and a number of commentaries say is intended here. Because over and over again, the way it's structured in the Hebrew, it does not indicate that it's talking primarily about moral uprightness. It's talking more about accuracy. Now, don't get me wrong, moral uprightness is of extreme importance, but in this psalm, at this point, it's not talking about righteousness as much as it is rightness. So here it is in a more literal rendering. He guides me down the right path. Paths of righteousness. He guides me down the right path. The right path. To us, it's hard to understand paths of righteousness. Now, we get this. We get this. If you have one whit of a heart for God, He's going to get you where you need to be. When your life ends, you will have done what He intended you to do. I want to show you a couple of scriptures where this is concerned. Acts 13, verse 36. It says, "For when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep." We know that that's a figure of speech for a physical death. He fell asleep. He was buried with his fathers, and his body decayed. Well, that is slightly too much information, but I want you to, if you can get over the decay real quickly and back up toward the beginning of the verse, I want you to notice something here. For when David had served God's purpose in his own generation. Listen carefully. That's all this is about. That's it. You are here to serve God's purpose. And even in David's weaknesses and failures, although God never condoned them, and we've all seen momentously how He paid for them in consequences. Anyone that thinks he got off easy is not familiar with the true narrative of David, because there were severe chastisements that followed on the heels of his sin. But what it does tell us is that when all was said and done, he served God's purpose in his own generation. That's it, girlfriend. That's it. That's what, before you are laid in a casket or whatever happens to you at your death, all in the world you are meant to do is just live out God's purpose for you in your own generation, not somebody else's, your own generation. Now turn with me to Philippians. I want you to hear Philippians 2, verse 13. It says this: "For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to His good purpose." It's God. It is God who works in you to will and to act. And that works in is a present active participle, and that means He keeps doing it. He keeps working in you to will and to act according to His good purpose. Now, what did we see about David in Acts chapter 13? What had he done when all was said and done? He had done what? He had fulfilled God's what? God's purpose in his what? His own generation. We're seeing right here that the same thing is promised to us. That honestly, I want you to hear this now as an older woman. I could not have had this perspective 16 years ago when this was first written and first taped. But I can tell you this now. If you have a heart that is remotely inclined to do the will of God will find you. I promise you that. You don't have to stress. You don't have to panic. You just know Him and love Him, and His plan for you is going to find you. It's going to find you. But it does mean this: no matter what you go through, even when you think this can't possibly have any purpose, au contraire, my sister, everything you go through, every season, every challenge, every illness, every experience, even your failure, He will work together for good if you will love Him, seek to have a heart for Him, and live according to His purposes and plans. That's what the Word says. So He's directing. Even when you think this job, this was the only one that came about, but this couldn't possibly be His will. Listen, unless it's sinful, job itself is sinful. God is working in his providential will, and his purposes will be fulfilled. No need to panic. I want you to look at one another. I'm going to look at you on the other side of the screen. Just go, stop panicking. Stop panicking. Let's stop panicking over the will of God. Let's stop panicking that we're going to have no purpose when it's all said and done. Do you have a heart to love him and a mind that wants to know him? Pray for that. Because if you love him, you're going to do his will. If you love him, you are going to serve him. You have a mind to know him. He's not just anybody that's out there going, listen, Lord, I want to do your will. Do you honestly think he's just going to keep hiding it and keep putting it behind a bushel? Just keep, like, oh, it's over here. Oh, it's down. Oh, it's over here. Why would he do that? You're going to fulfill your purpose. And when you lay it down and you think to yourself, I don't think I ever did. I don't think I ever did. I don't think I ever fulfilled my purpose. You need to know that those purposes may be lived out in those generations to come, out through your family line in ways you cannot even comprehend until you see the plan fulfilled from heaven's perspective. Your God is faithful.